Hey everyone, my name is Quin, and I'll be talking to you today about publish updates with Expo and React Native. So on our roadmap, I'll be going over what exactly an update is, how an update works, and the concept of application runtimes. I'll also be going over a feature we're releasing soon called the deployments tool, and I'll be going over the concept of branches and how they relate to updates. And I'll also be talking about things on our roadmap that we're going to be releasing later this year, such as feature rollouts and updates metering. All right, so let's get started. I want you to first imagine that you're this guy. I know that it looks like a stock photo of your everyday average software guy, but really this person is Josh Wardle, the creator of Wordle. And for those of you who don't know, Wordle is a game that went viral recently. And for users, you have to figure out a 5-letter word in 6 tries. It's currently hosted at a website called powerlanguage.co.uk. And now that you're Josh Wardle, a really meaningful evolution to Wordle would be to make a mobile app for it. So let's take a look at making a React Native version of Wordle. So it's Friday night and you want to take a first stab at Wordle. So you put something together and it looks great. And as everybody alludes to on the internet, you really have to look at your app size. So you make an internal distribution on your phone and you see that the Wordle app takes up 16.5 megabytes on your phone, which is pretty reasonable for a first pass. Everything looks good, so you decide to put it up to the app stores and the Play stores. So everything's going swimmingly so far, but you notice that reviews start coming in and they honestly don't look so great. You've got Alice complaining that if anybody has actually sanity checked the app, Bob saying that the puzzle is completely ruined, and concerned wordlers saying that they solved it in one go. This is honestly really confusing, as Wordle worked fine when you shipped it. So you download it from the store to see what's going on. And unfortunately, it turns out that you've left in a debug alert giving the entire puzzle away. That's quite unfortunate, and it's no wonder that concerned wordlers solved it in one go. So let's take a look at how to fix this really fast. And let's take a look at the root cause. So the culprit is this one-liner here where we're putting up an alert and giving away the answer. But fortunately for you, the fix is quite easy too. You add 2 chars in front of the line and ta-da, you've commented it out. So now we need a way to deliver this to users really fast. And over the years at Expo, we've developed tools to help people do that. Several years ago, we released something called Expo Publish, which allows you to deliver updates to your users really fast. And we got a lot of feedback from folks saying what they liked about it and what they didn't like about it. So we decided to take that feedback and build an entirely new thing. The new thing that we have in preview today is called EAS Update. It does very similar things, sends updates down to your users. But one of the big pluses about it is that it works with all React Native apps, and it's got a better, more ergonomic workflow. So I'll be talking about EAS Update today, mostly in my presentation. And if you recall, we had that nasty bug in your Wordle. So once you've installed EAS Updates, you can go ahead and run EAS Update and deploy it to the production branch and specify a human readable message. And in this case, it's fix bug. All right, so let's take a look at what's happening behind the scenes when the end user opens up your app. So the end user, when they load the app, they're going to contact our servers when they first load it, and they're going to ask for the newest Wordle update. Our servers are going to see if there has been a new update available, and if there is one, we're going to send it down. And it looks like that you've published the fix a couple minutes ago, so we're going to send it down to the Wordle user. And here's what the end user is going to see. They're going to download the buggy version from the store, and upon the next reload of their app, they're going to take in the new update and they're going to see the fixed version. So let's also go into the internals of an update. What exactly is it? So if we look at an app binary, we're going to see that it consists of two different layers. The update layer, which consists of your JavaScript and TypeScript code with your app logic, and image assets such as like JPEGs or PNGs that your app depends on. All these things can change at runtime, and these are things that can change with an update. We've also got something at a native layer, which are things that are considered more static. So for example, your application config, which is stuff like your Google services JSON or your info plist, things like your app icon or your native code, those are things that are considered static and can't change with an update delivery. These things can only be changed when you rebuild your app. So enough about updates and more about you. So fortunately for you, because Wordle has gone so viral, the New York Times has taken a lot of interest and eventually buys your game. It's great for you because they bought it for an undisclosed 7-figure amount, but people are starting to raise a lot of concerns. The Irish Times asks, will Wordle remain free after its buyout by the New York Times? And The Verge says that Wordle has been bought by the New York Times and will initially remain free for everyone to play. And honestly, it seems like people are expecting you to make a lot of money from Wordle really soon. And we all know that the key to success is to underpromise and overdeliver. So let's start to make money from Wordle as soon as possible and see what it'd look like to implement an in-app purchase. So as I said before, in an app binary, we've got an update layer and a native layer. The update layer is all the things that can change at runtime, and the native layer are the more static things. So let's say we pull in an in-app purchase module from NPM. Let's see how our binary would change in the context of this install. So as usual, your update layer contains your TypeScript files or your JavaScript files. And in the native layer, you'll have in-app purchase modules, like you have the Kotlin versions for Android, and you have the Swift modules for iOS. So in your application code, when you want people to pay for Wordle, you're probably going to have some code that calls into purchase item async from the module. And when that code is run, say if your end user is running on an Android device, it's going to run the logic in the Kotlin modules, and it'll call into something like Google Pay. And similarly, on an iOS machine, when somebody calls purchase item async, it'll call into the Swift modules and call into stuff like Apple Pay. So let's look at the two app binaries side by side. We've got the free Wordle and the paid Wordle. In the free Wordle, we've got the basic game logic, and in the native layer, we've got basic modules like animation packages that free Wordle depends on. And in paid Wordle, we've got everything that free Wordle has, but we've got more payments logic in your update layer. And in particular, in the native layer, we've got your native in-app purchase modules. Right. So now that we've got our paid Wordle binary already, it'll allow you to make payments so that people can pay you $4.99 per month for the privilege to play Wordle. But that's not good enough for you. You want to go the extra mile and you want to make even more money. So your big brain idea now is to upsell Wordle products to existing customers. And how exactly is that going to work? So you want to detect if somebody has paid for Wordle, and given that they've been using Wordle for long enough, you want to prompt them to buy even more things. Right. So in order to detect whether someone has bought Wordle and how long they've bought it for, you want to call into their purchase history probably. And that will involve a call to in-app purchases and to call something called get purchase history async. Right. So because you've already got a compatible app binary, once you've implemented this feature, you can go ahead and publish it. Again, you can run EAS update, deploy it to the production branch, and add a human readable message. In this case, it's add purchase history. All right, so as we've gone over the differences between the two app binaries, let's take a look at what happens under the hood. So imagine someone is running paid Wordle. When they open up the app, they're going to be asking our servers to give them the newest Wordle update. We're going to take a look and see that, hey, you have published the purchase history feature recently, so we're going to send it down to you. When that code is run on the paid Wordle app, it's going to call into the in-app purchase native module. And depending if you're on Android or iOS, it'll run the respective Kotlin modules or the Swift modules. Right, so now let's take a look at free Wordle. If somebody running free Wordle asks just for the newest update from our server, we're going to say, hey, yeah, there is a new update. You've recently published the purchase history feature. Here you are. Now, somebody running free Wordle, when they run this code, it's going to expect to run some native module for in-app purchases or in-app payments. And unfortunately, it just isn't there on the native layer. And this is really sad because you're going to get the red screen of death. So from this exercise, we can see that when you have this feature that you published out, it's compatible with paid Wordle, but it's not compatible with free Wordle. And that's why we introduced the concept of a runtime version. In free Wordle, we had the basic modules, so we'll give it a runtime version of 1. In paid Wordle, we changed the native layer. We add an in-app purchase module, so we'll bump up the runtime version to 2. And lastly, we've got this update that we published, and we have to specify which runtime versions it's compatible with. And because we're relying on the in-app purchase module, we're going to give it a runtime version of 2. All right, so let's look at what happens to updates in the context of runtime versions. Somebody with paid Wordle is going to ask our servers to give them the newest update for runtime version 2. We're going to look and see that you have indeed published the purchase history feature. So we're going to give it to the paid Wordler, and everything's going to work out fine. In the case of free Wordlers, they're going to ask the servers for the newest update for runtime version 1 because they have a different native layer. And we're going to do the correct thing this time. And we're going to say, hey, there aren't any new compatible updates. So what will end up happening is that the free Wordlers will just continue on with the original code they have. And at Expo a couple months ago, we put together a UI to help visualize all these deployments. Because as your app gets more mature, you're going to bump the runtime versions a lot, and you're going to deploy to production and perhaps beta environments. And it's kind of hard to keep track of what updates you're going to get. So here's a look at what a deployment UI would look like in the context of free Wordle. You've deployed to the production channel. You've got a runtime version of 1. And if anybody with free Wordle asks for the newest update, we're going to give you the fixed alert bug that we published a long time ago. In the context of paid Wordle, we're going to see that you've deployed it to the production channel. It's got a runtime version of 2. And if anybody asks for the newest updates, we're going to give you the payments history feature. And this deployments UI is on track to be released in the next cycle, so it'll be out really soon. All right, so you've got the paid Wordle out in the wild for a while, and you're dying to see what people are saying about your app because it's quite a big change. So Alice is starting to complain that payments is definitely not in the spirit of Wordle. Bob is saying that Wordle is extremely overpriced, and the concerned Wordler is just concerned about paying money altogether. So you sit down and you have another big brain idea. You ask yourself, what if we showed ads to people who don't want to pay? You have the best of both worlds because people who don't want to pay will see the freemium app, and people who do want to pay will have a better in-app experience. Right, so let's quickly take a look at what the app binary would look like for a paid Wordle with ads. You're going to have your initial logic for your app, the game logic, the payments logic, and you're going to have additional ads logic. And in the native layer, we have the basic modules and the in-app purchase module. And if you're using something like Google AdMob, you're going to have to update your Google Services JSON or your info plist. And these are all things that are static and can only change when they're rebuilt. And because they're a change in the native layer, we want to bump the runtime version from 2 to 3. And let's also take a look at your development flow. You're most likely going to be committing to your main Git branch, and you're going to be adding really nicely formatted commits like add in app purchases, add payments history, and the works. But unfortunately for you, you honestly don't have time to implement the ads feature, so you're going to delegate it to your intern. Your intern is going to be working from the ads beta Git branch and is going to be making a lot of sketchy commits. So fortunately for you, you have time to diligently go over all the PRs that your intern has. But the problem is that ads beta diverges a lot from the main Git branch. So it's just easier to deploy the intern's branch. So when we look at the deployment for paid Wordle with ads, we'll see that it's been deployed to production. It's got a runtime version of 3. But instead of deploying the main branch, you're going to be deploying the intern's ads beta branch. And the newest update that is going to be delivered is the blah update, whatever that means. So now that you've got paid ads out in the wild, it looks good initially. You've done the QA and people see ads, and they also see a prompt to pay you if they don't like ads. But there's a lot of edge cases in apps. And as people will see, the intern's branch is really unstable. There's a lot of edge cases that lead to a lot of fatal errors, and that's really unacceptable. You can't have this out in production any longer. So let's take a look at how we can fix this. All right, if we go back to the deployments UI for paid Wordle with ads, you'll see that we've got this edit button in the corner. And if you click on it, you'll see that you can edit the deployment. So currently the deployment is mapped to the intern's ads beta branch, but it'll give you the option to swap it back to your more stable main branch. It'll give you a preview of changes. So if anybody is asking for the newest updates, we'll give you the payments history feature. If you go ahead and deploy it, we'll give you a confirmation as well as all the changes that have been made. So what the end user will see is that they'll download the paid with ads version from the store. And upon the next reload, they'll see the paid only version of Wordle. So unfortunately for you, the damage has been done, and Wordle with ads has been out with the unstable branch for a while. So let's see what people are saying. Alice is once again complaining that she absolutely hates the ads. Bob says that Wordle has way too many ads, and Concerned Wordler is concerned about the ads. So you sit down and think to yourself and say that, hey, ads could really be successful, but also they could be a complete disaster. But honestly, there's no way to really know unless if you deploy it to people in the wild. But let's look at your user base. It really sucks that you have to deploy ads to your entire user base to find out that everybody's pissed off about it. And there might be a better way to go about this. So let's take a look at your users. You've got Alice, Bob, and the Concerned Wordler. Instead of deploying it to everybody all at once, it'd be really nice to say if you could roll it out to a third of your users instead. So in this example, it would be really nice if you gave ads to Alice, whereas Bob and the Concerned Wordler would have the original version still. If Alice says that she absolutely hates the ads, you can roll it back and give her the original version and Bob and concerned Wordler would be none the wiser. But in the case where Alice says that she loves ads, you can continue rolling it out to Bob and eventually concerned Wordler incrementally. So this feature is called feature rollouts. It's on a roadmap and is on track to be released later this year. Another thing that you might think is really useful is to figure out who actually received your fixes. So if we can recall from the beginning, people were downloading your buggy Wordle and you right away deployed a fix to make things right. And in reality, the sad truth is not everybody is going to get your fix. Not everybody is going to open up the Wordle app to get the update, or people may be in an area where there's no reception or really bad internet, and they're not going to be able to download your update. It'd be really nice to know how many people downloaded your original app. So for example, you can see that like 3,000 users have received your update. And it'd be really nice to know how many people actually downloaded your fix. And these metrics are important for making decisions regarding your app going forward. And this feature is on our roadmap also, and is on track to be released later this year. Right, so that's all I have for today. The end of my presentation, and thank you so much for listening.